Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dave Hodges, the host of the Common Sense Show, the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. Well, we've got a really terrific guest. He's no stranger to our audience, very popular with our audience. And whenever I run his articles that appear on his website to my website, boy, the results are really, really impressive. People really like Dane Wigington. They like the work that he does. He focuses on geoengineering, and we're going to kind of be all over the map tonight with what Dane is looking into. So, Dane, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you could join us, and it's great to have you back.
Thanks for your continued voice with trying to sound the alarm on issues of immense importance. I would argue, Dave, mathematically, the most dire and immediate threat we face short of nuclear cataclysm that so many people are still not grasping the gravity of.
You know, you're right. A lot of people don't get it, but people are waking up to the notion that everything isn't as it should be.
Climate engineering, the most destructive human endeavor ever launched by the human race.
Man, what a mess we have put ourselves in. But here's what I come back to. The people that are basically in charge of this geoengineering, this climate manipulation, I can't imagine a scenario, a sane scenario, where someone would do this to their own planet in an environment in which they and their children must exist in.
You have to look at their mentality. And this may help many of your listeners. We posted about 13 very short 2 to 3 minute videos answering the most commonly asked questions on climate engineering, top center of the homepage, so that may help. But let me answer it here briefly. You have to look through their lens, and this is how they look through it. They're not about to give up their power. They're not about to give up the current paradigm of trying to acquire more power. So they look at it as a risk-to-risk scenario for their benefit, the risk of doing it versus the risk of not doing it. So this is about retaining power and control. It's not about the greater good. Why don't they consider the consequences, the ultimate consequences to themselves? Because those at the top of the food chain of the power structure never consider the overall consequences, do they, Dave? That's why they build and detonate 2,000 plus nuclear bombs. That's why we have 400 plus nuclear power plants on the planet today, any one of which could be a global extinction event. That may already be the case with Fukushima, but let's add Chernobyl back to the equation because the sarcophagus at Chernobyl is disintegrating from the radiation. Same with the dome of contained nuclear contamination in the South Pacific that was the remnants of 43 plus massive nuclear detonations. That dome is being submerged by rising seas, deteriorating. That's about to start spewing into the atmosphere again. And yet we're building more nuke plants. Now let me back this into an overall apocalyptic equation. Let's look at just the nuke plants. Geoengineering, greatest single causal factor with destroying the ozone layer. We now have massive amounts of UV radiation hitting the planet, which that by itself also another potential extinction event in the near term. Now, if we get a CME, a coronal mass ejection, solar flare, like the Carrington event in the 1800s, that would shut down grids all over the globe. That would shut down the cooling for nuclear plants. Now we have meltdowns occurring everywhere, dozens, perhaps hundreds of them. Game over. Back to climate engineering for that scenario too, destroying the Earth's natural protection and making us more vulnerable to a CME or solar flare. From so many directions, climate engineering is pounding the nails into our collective coffins. That's a scientific, verifiable, frontline fact.
There's not much to be said following that because I don't see any legitimate way out.
The horizon looks incredibly dark. I do admit that. On the nuke plants alone, people don't understand what a death sentence those were to build. You can't just turn them off. And now they're looking for anywhere, everywhere to bury the radioactive material, contaminating everything. And that's short of a meltdown, which, again, is already occurring in Japan with no technology known to fix it. But again, no matter how high the mountain looks, Dave, the most insurmountable climb can sometimes be accomplished if one focuses on their priorities. They're one foot in front of the other first. And I would argue although we have many bridges to cross, if you will, and a very long journey ahead, and we are in uncharted territory, must we not start with the biggest hole in the bottom of the boat first? And that hole is climate engineering, without any question at all. And climate engineering is a far too dignified a term. This is weather warfare. This is biological warfare because these elements are highly toxic, highly bioavailable, synergistically toxic. This is nothing short of a programs fueling near-term planetary omnicide. If we could expose this, again, I would argue, we would galvanize populations all over the globe in a common cause of trying to avert near-term total planetary extinction. That's how severe this road is. And I don't want people to believe me. I'm asking them to investigate everything I'm saying. I'm pleading with them. And people shouldn't underestimate how much power they have in the equation, Dave. They all do. If we would simply not be deterred by those around us who don't want to hear the truth, because they will be forced to face the truth soon, like it or not. If we share credible data with them, we plant a seed that will be forced to sprout soon. If we all did that, we would reach a critical mass of awareness. If we can reach a critical mass of awareness, we can wake up military families, thus their military member. And there's a lot of good people in the military, Dave, as I know you know. I'm communicating with 3 Air Force Major Generals now, 3. One very high ranking, and they're trying to help. They're exceptional human beings, did not know this was going on. They know they've been lied to. They know that this is a very hard thing to face for a military member of that rank, that their entire career was dedicated to something that may cost the future for their children. But they are facing that fact. If we can wake up the U.S. military and get enough of them on our side, we could stop these programs from the inside out.
How does the movement of technocracy and moving everyone into a smart grid, how does that play into this scenario?
We're not going to get that far. When people talk about various agendas, Agenda 2030 and so forth, whatever plans the power structure has, I don't deny they have those plans. We are not going to get that far without hitting the wall at full velocity. And that means the whole paradigm goes upside down. As soon as nobody can help anybody else, it's going to be chaos. The law of the jungle will ensue. Power structure, if they're still functional and if they still have a military that's willing to serve them, will play unimaginable cards at that point. And I would argue they're preparing for that. Back to 5G, which has the potential to render populations virtually helpless. So I would argue they're absolutely preparing for that. Why did U.S. agencies like Homeland Security purchase 2.4 billion rounds of 40 caliber hollow point? Why? I think we know why. They are absolutely preparing. So again, people need to understand the scenarios I'm describing are not somewhere far off on the horizon. They're unfolding right now. Preparations are being made right now. And if people, Dave, if I can get philosophical for a moment, if people would consider that we should do the right thing, we should make every effort to try to preserve some sort of future for our children and their posterity, because it's the right thing to do, not because we're guaranteed a satisfactory result. That's not true courage. That's not true love or dedication to our children. We must try because it's incumbent upon us to try. It's our obligation. People need to reprioritize. Why are we here? Are we here to fight for the greater good or to pursue our personal pleasures until there's nothing left? We need to ask ourselves, which is it?
It's a very stunning question. If this nightmare scenario is allowed to carry itself out, it comes to fruition and goes full cycle, will there be human survivors?
Absolutely no. Absolutely not. And this is in the very near term horizon. I'm not talking about centuries away. Right now, statistically, we are likely past the whole climate conference scenario, Dave. All of them are complete shams. They're designed to provide smoke and mirror cover for the advancement of the geoengineering insanity I talked about. Statistically, we are likely past 3.5 degrees C of warming right now on the planet. That's above the baseline at which humans existed, and it's accelerating. So the bottom line is, mathematically speaking, on the current path, I want to stress that, on the current path, if we remain on this path, mathematically, statistically, we have no chance, even in the near-term horizon.
You know, when
we
I
have
hear
to change course.
Let's
change course, and maybe we might have some potential to salvage something, and that's worth fighting for.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next, exactly, because we have given the audience in the course of this interview a lot to digest. And I know that many of them are going to need to take this in smaller bits. I've got a lot of familiarity with your work, and I'm being pushed to keep up with this.
I understand how hard it is to have our reality blown apart and to have to face this. But if we don't face it, too many people have pulled punches for too long. That's why we're in this dark place.
Exactly.
We have to face reality head on now, or we won't have tomorrow.
I hear that warning loud and clear. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Dane Wigington, a very sobering account of where we're at with the planet. I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening.